Hey y'all, it's Melissa at Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. We're doing part 2 of our egg selling strategies and showing you our egg production flock. So glad that you're here. Please subscribe to Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. We are still trying really hard to grow the number of subscribers on our channel, and it's slowly, steadily building up, and we're so happy to see that, but we're still working at it. So please, if you can help us, if you haven't subscribed and you're watching, please subscribe. If you like the videos, give us the thumbs up on YouTube on our videos. We appreciate that. But please also help us if you want to share about our channel with friends and family. We'd love to add to our subscribers. So we are striving to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. And we're just, again, taking another look at these egg production chickens. Any of y'all that have experience with chickens, which I'm sure a lot of you watching do, maybe some people are new to raising chickens, but I'm sure you can tell right off by looking at these chickens that they are dealing with some heat stress, a little bit of heat stress, and they're using the coping mechanisms that chickens naturally have to deal with heat stress. So what chickens tend to do, we've pointed out before and shared before with each other that chickens don't sweat. And so I'm in rural Southeast Ohio, USA, and it's mid 80s. It's warm. Like you step outside and you're in the sun a little bit and you're sweating. And so these chickens actually have two options for going outdoors. They can go in that front run, and they can go out this hatch to another little run. There's this side run, of course y'all can't see on out, but there's not shade out there. Out front, there's a little bit of shade, where we're getting some little bit of shade just because of the direction of the building. But at any rate, what you're seeing here is the panting. The chickens are panting, and they're holding their wings out to the side. Now, I was keeping the camera on this chicken initially to start with here because, interestingly enough, black chicken, black feathers. This is a black Orpington. So Orpingtons are heavy feathered, heavy bodied, but she is actually handling the heat just about the best of the entire flock. She is one of the youngest. Now there's a lavender Orpington. She's definitely the oldest hen in the flock. She is not panting as heavily as the other birds. She is holding her wings out a little bit from her body. Y'all may not be able to tell that. The Isa Browns are really holding their wings out, and the white birds, they're holding their wings out some too, a little bit of panting, and we've got some mixed breed birds here that lay colored eggs. There's one, and that gray one right there is got some blue cochin in it. So anyway, so that's a classic like heat stress coping mechanism, dealing with heat management in a chicken, holding those wings out. So they've got plenty of water. We actually have a water there and a water there and a water there, so you can kind of see the gals getting their drink. So as far as egg production, we're actually going to talk about part 2 of the egg selling strategy that we use on our little farm. But the number one thing about egg production is help your hens continue to produce eggs well. And the number one thing about that is water and food. So you got to make sure they always have fresh, clean water that they will drink. If it gets like so warm or so stagnant that they won't drink it, it's not helping them. So it would have to be changed. Also, making sure that they have food on demand and all the time. At least that's what we do. We do free choice on demand feed all the time. So we do at some point, try to make sure that they eat down what is in the feeders. So both of these feeders, there's feed in them, not an issue, but we're letting them eat them all down empty. So they're doing that. So, if your chickens are eating, they're managing the heat stress just fine. And if they're up getting a drink of water, they're managing the heat stress just fine. Those feeders are nice. We use those actually for our meat birds. We're probably going to be taking those out soon. There's that black Orpington. She's handling the heat very, very well. So is the lavender. She's not panting as much as the Isa Browns. So actually the Orpingtons, they're managing the heat stress really well. So that's interesting because they are heavy feathered and heavy bodied. But I was saying about these feeders, we like to use those with our meat birds, and in about another 6 weeks we'll have more meat birds moving in, so we'll want those feeders for them. We'll probably go back to this long feeder. It's on the outside of their fence right now, but that is a homemade, it's been around a long time. It's a heavy feeder. It's a great feeder. It's a little bit harder to pour the feed into, but that's not an issue. You just have to take more time to pour the feed in. But we're going to swap back to that feeder, I believe, for these chickens. But back to our part 2 of our, and some of them there's another, it was dust bathing, which I kind of disrupted progress there, but that's another, they do that all the time anyway, but that is something I see them do when they're warmer. So at any rate, but we were wanting to follow up on part 2 of egg selling strategy, specifically about egg subscriptions. So I talked about this in the video that we uploaded most recently, Wednesday, and we do an egg subscription for part of our egg selling strategy. So I had told y'all that when we do that, we just figure up 26 weeks of a dozen a week for a prospective customer, and if they want a subscription, they prepay for the price of 1 dozen times 26, and so that guarantees them that I will check in with them once a week and see if they are ready for a dozen eggs. And so a couple of things about the way that we work that I wanted to share is that I do all the keeping track of that. The customer doesn't have to worry about keeping track of how many dozen they've taken, how many dozen are left. I do all of that as a complimentary part of that service for them. And also, we do allow skip weeks. So we don't require that they take their dozen every week, because there's sometimes families find, they didn't use all the eggs up, or they've gotten their eggs 2 weeks in a row, and for some reason they didn't use them all up, and they're starting to feel like an overabundance of eggs. So, whenever I check in each week, my customers know that if they want to take a skip week, they just let me know we don't want to get eggs this week. And so when that happens, I just document it in my records as a skip week. And so obviously no money is extracted from their subscription total for that week. So the way I manage the money on the subscriptions too is that when they pay up front for their 26 weeks of eggs, or 26 dozen of eggs is what it amounts to, I actually put that money, I like cash the check or take the cash that they give us, and I put that money in its own envelope, and it basically goes into holding in basically like a locked safe. And what I do is then, as the customer, as I check in with them each week, as they take a dozen eggs at a time, I physically go into that envelope and move the price for 1 dozen eggs out of their subscription envelope into the income stream for the egg production. So the reason I do that is because we're dealing with animals, we're dealing with nature, we're dealing with natural processes. What if my egg production slacked off? What if my hens started molting? What if my hens went off laying for whatever reason? And I've collected money from however many people, for 26 dozen eggs at a time. So, I am aware of that. And so that's the reason that we put the egg subscription money, into like physical holding. And each time a dozen comes off that subscription, I physically go into that and move that money over into, wherever we're keeping the egg production money at the time. And that way, in that envelope, there's physically left any money that I haven't filled egg dozens for. So that if something catastrophic, unexpected would happen, worst case scenario, I could still go to my customer and say, I can't fill that egg subscription. I can't fill any more eggs. We've had this catastrophe with our chickens. Here's a refund of the unused part of your subscription. So I wanted to mention that we do that with the egg subscription, because I think it's only fair. If someone's giving us prepaid for 26 dozen eggs, I'm a steward then of that money, and I owe them 26 dozen eggs, even though I've promised them over time. So I want to make sure that if something unforeseen happens, if I can't give them the eggs that I promised them, I can definitely return their money to them. So I think that's something maybe to be aware of if you want to delve into trying the egg subscriptions. So that's really all I wanted to share on egg subscriptions with y'all. And I, again, really appreciate you joining us. If anybody has any strategies that's worked for them on keeping their egg production sold, please let us know. If you're interested in what we do with our egg production, we can sometime, walk through the process of after we collect our eggs, how we prepare them and how we package them, and more about our selling techniques on those. So at any rate, that pretty much sums that up. But I thought egg subscriptions was a neat idea when it was brought to our attention, and it's been something that has worked out well for us and for customers. And like I said, we just try to balance it with the amount of hens that we have and the amount of production that we're seeing consistently, so that we can fill the subscriptions and still have some eggs available for on-demand requests. So y'all have an excellent weekend, and we'll see you again back at Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. Please subscribe. Thanks for joining us.